18th January 2021, a momentous evening for us at ICF Bengaluru. At the outset, however, it's on a sad note that we announce the sudden and untimely demise of Dr. Radha, the Dean of Ramaiah Institute of Management Sciences, on 11th January, exactly a week ago. She was so excited about this project when we got on conversations with her around this, and when we had our first webinar. When we met her with this idea of coaching her students, she was the one who was most positive. I'm sure she'd have been very happy to share her feedback. And I know wherever she is blessing this evening. Therefore, dedicating this evening to her, we request you to observe a minute's silence in her memory. Thank you. Okay, I thought as adults we don't need house rules, but seems like we do need them. So those of us who are not speaking, kindly mute yourself such that you don't disturb the proceedings. And if there are any questions, please type it in the chat box. We do have time, or any comments as the program is progressing. Kindly put it on the chat box. We have time for Q&A, and we will take those questions. We have an amazing evening lined up for you. And if at any given point of time you want to speak up, it is towards the end that you can unmute yourself. So kindly follow this so the proceedings can go ahead without any hitch. Thank you very much. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens, said Carl Jung. Good evening and welcome to this roundtable. On behalf of ICF Bengaluru, I, Rashmi Shetty, welcome you, and I'm happy to be the moderator of this session this evening. This will be an evening where we reflect on meaningful work that we did during the pandemic, and we as coaches set out to explore with two prestigious institutes, the Ramaiah Institute of Management Studies, RIMS for short, and Christ University in the city of Bangalore. Coaching our tomorrow today. Our learnings have been aplenty, and we are here to reflect on how it has been with RIMS and how do we move forward from here. So without much ado, we set out with the proceedings of this evening, and we start with a video feedback of a few of the students who were part of this venture from RIMS. Okay, Payal, we don't have the audio. If you can stop.
And they give us an opportunity.
Is it fine now?
Yeah.
You want me to start from the beginning?
Yeah, it'll really help.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry for that.
No, that's okay.
Months ago, ICF came to our college and they gave us a pre-session to our students and they gave us an opportunity to attend 3 sessions with them for the top 50 students who would enroll for that course.
While the sessions were going on, I developed myself personally as well as professionally. I discovered a new side of mine which I never knew it existed. Now I am more confident and I am not scared of keeping my opinion in front of everyone. Earlier, I would have never come on screen and spoke about how I felt, but now I am not scared to do it. The coaching session helped me to know about my strength and weaknesses and how I can convert my weaknesses into my strength for future. Moreover, the sessions were also helpful for me to deal with my emotional quotient.
I learned a few things while I was in the coaching. So it was like I need to be genuine in my interviews and understand what I can do best for the organization with the skills which already have. And using right choice of words at the right time is an important habit which we need to cultivate. They told me to explore deeper about the topic which we are not aware of, at least after someone else asks about it. And this would help us while communicating in our normal life or in the corporate life.
So the coaching sessions were really useful for me. It not only helped me to analyze my strengths and weaknesses, but also helped me a lot during my interview process. These sessions were enough, I feel, to address those issues. Moreover, my placements were on, so Bobby sir really helped me to overcome my fears and my weaknesses and help me with the campus placements. And I'm really thankful to ICF, and my experience with ICF was beyond anything. Lastly, I would like to thank our Dean, Dr. Radha R. and Professor Prasad Lingana for giving us this opportunity. Thank you so much.
I now request our chapter president, Mr. M.G. Raghuraman, to say a few words and welcome our guests this evening, and of course, our members. MG.
Good evening and welcome, everybody. For me, it's always a little bit of a pain to speak after Rashmi. She speaks all those kind and nice, beautiful words, and then as the president, it becomes invariably difficult for me to do the welcome speech properly. But I will try. First of all, welcome the panelists for the roundtable and everybody here. Ma'am Ruth Rotmeyer, I'm sure it must be 6 a.m. in the morning for you. And thank you, first of all, for getting up so early. We really appreciate your support for the ICF. And we look forward to many more of such participation from you. Let me quickly introduce Ma'am Ruth. Sorry for the background noise. Somebody is blaring the horns in my apartment. She is doing exactly what we all wish to do in our lives, managing coaches for delivering developmental capability to young leaders. We just saw this video. It was so inspiring to see these young people talk glorifyingly about their coaching experiences. And Ma'am Ruth Ratmaya is exactly doing that, and we look forward to hearing from her experience in this roundtable about what she's doing in Rice University. My friend Sharag Heda is someone whom I know of late, the last 1 year, very well. We both are doing a program together. And he's also been in when I was in Emphasis as CIO, he was in a competition. Microland was always our competitor. And Sharad is an industry veteran, 35 years. He has done just about every possible role, from operations to CFO to CEO global, or president, etc. And he was the pioneer and brought digital technologies in the IT infrastructure services space, which is very new to our country, even as as recent as 10 years back. So currently Chief of Staff at Microland. We look forward to his participation today and pearls of wisdom from him. Unfortunately, we do not have the Dean of RIMS, Dr. Radha, with us today. But I should not forget to mention her excellent track record of outstanding placements for her for university, and she was setting benchmarks for global standards, and which is not an easy task for her. I will also welcome Professor Prasad Lingana, faculty at Ramaya Institute of Management Studies. More than 3 decades of sales and marketing, general management, solid corporate and consulting background. He's the HOD of the finishing school. I'm sure he's dishing out young, talented future managers from the institute by the dozens. We look forward to hearing him today. And Dr. A. Joseph George, founder of Workplace Catalyst, an HR professional in this group, stellar reputation in the fields of career development, professional career development, training, and organization processes. I don't want to take too much time out of this esteemed panel. We'd like everybody to hear them, but a few words about what ICF is doing. In our chapter in Bangalore, we have 5 chapters in the country. Bangalore is one of them. We have about 111 coaches, professional coaches. We are trying our best to spread coaching awareness in the marketplace, both in the corporate as well as in the education space. That's our primary goal. We do believe that coaching has got a huge place, especially in today's world of digital technology. I wish I was coached by somebody when I was CIO for 6 long years. I thought I could never be a CEO unless I assassinated the CEO himself, because the way was not known to me. I did not have the right mental mindset to make it. Today, as we saw the young aspirants from the college speak about coaching, we know what its potential is. So without much ado, I'll hand over the mic to Sayog and the panelists for a wonderful session today. Thank you all.
Thank you, MG. The only thing you did not do was introduce Sayog. You did all the rest of my job for the evening. So, so a quick intro of Sayog. 3 decades of international experience as a business leader, partnered with more than 60 leading organizations, and he is the lead of this entire initiative on behalf of the Bengaluru chapter. So Sayog, all yours. Take over.
Thank you, Rashmi. And right now, I just can't find my presentation. So just please bear with me. And yes, it is here.
I wish I could show you the stopwatch, Sayog.
Yeah, I know my time is already. Okay. MG said his job was tough because he's following Rashmi. Just imagine my job, I have to follow after MG. So 2 great communicators. So I'm going to do my best. First and foremost, Dr. Radha's passing away has left a big void, which will be very difficult to fill. There are so many questions that were crossing our mind. And one such question was, what will be the best way to celebrate life of a person who was really a trailblazer, an innovator, and a caring educator? I think the best way to honor her memory will be to remember some of the decisions she took in her lifetime. Dr. Radha and Professor Prasad gave us a go-ahead to implement coaching at RIMS. It is just providence that Somi, she thanks her and appreciates her. I know Dr. Radha is watching her, and just that thought is going to serve as such a great inspiration and motivation for all of us. The Unicorn Initiative is really an idea without boundaries. It was just August 22, 2020, when by sheer coincidence, I dialed into a webinar which was hosted by the ICF New Delhi chapter, Dr. Badri. And Ruth was on that panel, and she has very graciously agreed to join us. She presented to the entire group a case study of a coaching program at Rice University. The idea was so compelling that then and there, I decided that we should offer something to our students, and that I was very short-lived Because before we knew, there were 19 of us who got together. We put our head, heart, and hands together for this particular cause. So let me give you a little bit of a backdrop about the why. We firmly believe that by introducing coaching early in the curriculum, it not only helps the students, the education sector, the coaching fraternity, the leadership development in India, as well as it contributes to the society. Let me explain a little bit more about what I have just said. Knowledge is doubling every 12 months. Disruption on account of technological and climatic changes is going to make role obsolescence part and parcel of our lives. What skills can we give to our students that will help them navigate a world which they will face, which is going to be dominated by AI, ML, and IoT? The skill is learning to learn. Allow me to explain what learning to learn really means and how we translated it to the students. For us, it meant broadening the horizon of students, increasing their self-awareness, and helping them use that awareness to make intentional change in the important areas of their life. The government of India has floated the national education policy. And one of the cornerstones of this policy is holistic development of students. Coaching speaks directly to the government policy. There are 1,000 credentialed coaches in India, a number which is insufficient for a country of our size. If coaching has to take serious foothold in India, both the demand as well as the supply has to increase. I will speak about leadership development and how coaching can contribute to the development of our society a little bit later. But first, let me introduce to you our team. We are all volunteers who belong to different generations and we bring varied expertise. But very early, we agreed that we will be using coaching methodology. We wanted the students to develop reflective thinking and use it to solve their own problems. Less than 1% of the population universally can really indulge in reflective thinking. We know that both coaching and mentoring can work, but we are very clear that coaching brings sustainable results. It empowers the students. We want to partner with the educational institutions. And we believe that coaching, when added to the hard work that is being done at campuses all over the country, it can accelerate the development of our students. Leadership coaching, as it stands today, has an unspoken rule. It is reserved for the senior leaders who are perceived to have the highest potential. I believe in the 21st century that model must be reworked. We have so many challenges which are so enormous that require leadership everywhere. There is evidence all around us that people at 14 and 15 are climbing Mount Everest. A 21-year-old is going to become the mayor in Kerala, and 15-year-old has got the attention of political leaders on climate issues. There are endless examples of young people taking leadership actions and setting the world agenda. We believe that it is time to shift left the leadership coaching. According to an HBR article, some of the popular areas that leaders get coached in are delegating, managing conflict, listening skills. Offering leadership coaching in these areas to an executive who is in the latter half of his or her career is not only daunting, and in case if the change is made successfully, there are another just 10 or 15 years to utilize their skill. To the contrary, just think about a young person. He or she has an entire lifetime to utilize those skills. Someone has very rightly said, though it is a bit sarcastic statement, coaching in the corporate market is a repair job, whereas coaching in the college is really about preparation. I know Ruth has to say a lot about this particular subject. Let's come to the two pilots that we did. The first pilot we did was at Ramaiah Institute of Management Sciences, and simultaneously we started a pilot at Christ deemed to be university. At Ramaiah Institute of Management Sciences, we coached 20 students. The program began on November 1 and it ended on December 31st, 2020. We offered 3 coaching sessions over there. Today, we will be showcasing to you the story of the Ramaiah Institute. The Christ Project also started on November 1. We are coaching 40 students and it will continue till March 15th, 2021. And at Christ, we will be offering 5 sessions. The difference between the two is simply because that's what was agreed with the management. And first and foremost, we want to thank both the faculty as well as the management of both these schools, because without their agreeing, this pilot would have really not taken off. Now, at the end of December of 2020, we sent a short survey to all the students who completed the program. The questions are listed on your screen. The survey was administered confidentially. Names, email IDs, or phone numbers were not required. The numbers we are sharing are not statistically validated, as our sample size was small and the trends are only indicative. However, there is a lot to celebrate. And at the same time, there are a lot of things that we can learn from what we came to know from this survey. The first question that we put on that survey was, do you think coaching was helpful? And 33% of the students agreed with that statement, and 67% of the students strongly agreed with that statement. Now, there are two learnings we derived from this particular slide. Number one, majority of the students benefited from coaching. The other part was we started with 30 students, but only 20 finished the 3 sessions. We are investigating where we can improve as we go further into our projects. The next question really was, what are the top 2 things that change for you? The words that you are seeing on the screen are not descriptors. These are what the students shared with us. They are the empowering beliefs which students experienced. It is really heartening to see the change that happened just after 3 sessions. Let me continue on some other things that the students had really told us. They told us their confidence improved, and that you saw on the video also. We heard this more often than not. Better goal setting ability to find ways to reach their goals, managing themselves better. And when it comes to the third question, many a times, just to give you a little backdrop, we are so close to our near and dear ones that we lose the curiosity when we are conversing with them. Without that curiosity, we see people we see them as they are, and we don't see their potential. Whereas a professional coach sees a client as whole, creative, and resourceful. In the right environment, everybody can really blossom. To a question asking students to describe the journey, the words that we heard was helpful, friendly, excellent, comfortable, delightful, wonderful. Now that you've experienced coaching, how would you describe it? First and foremost, we're happy that our process was received as we had intended. It was coaching from beginning to end. When asked how they would describe coaching to a friend, this is what we heard. They won't solve your problem. Instead, they will make you solve it with just their words. So encouraging. And some other statements were, my coach helped me understand myself better, pulled out the answer from me where I was facing the difficulty. And finally, some of the other phrases that we heard for this particular question was, you will know your strengths, you will experience openness, self-learning. It is an area that is not given preference, but it is very important. My confidence improved. With that, my communication improved. Now, to the final question, based on your experience, would you recommend this program to other people? 93% of the students, they said yes, and 7% they said possibly. It is true that we spend enormous amount of time, but in return, we experience so much satisfaction that we just cannot describe. The Unicorn program can start a new narrative, which we can be associated with, which we can really feel proud of. In the next 10 years, if each one of us ignites 100 minds and inspires 100 coaches to do the same, we can create a new generation of leaders who know how to lead themselves. They will be more empathetic, inclusive, and will take a long-term view of this planet. The best customers for any product or service are the ones who have experienced it. In the event we do what we have just stated above, before we realize the market would have expanded many-fold, and it will be a great thing for coaching, and the vision of ICF Global would be realized. Thank you very much, and back to you, Rashmi. I hope it was within the time that you had given me.
Doesn't matter, Sayog. Very powerful words indeed. We now move to the inspiration behind this project, Ruth Ruthmeyer. Ruth Ruthmeyer is the Assistant Director of Coaching at the Doer Institute of New Leaders. She oversees the hiring, training, and managing of professional coaches who work directly with RISE students to increase their leadership capacity. Ruth has spoken to international audiences about the power of early intervention for emerging leaders and the proven effectiveness of leadership coaching. Ruth holds a PCC level credential with the ICF and is the Director of Training for Coach RISE. An ICF accredited program for leaders seeking to build their coaching skills and or practice. She currently serves on a task force for the International Coaching Federation and is a member of the Association of Coach Training Organizations to elevate the quality of professional coach training around the world. Ruth graduated magna cum laude from Rice University, Brown College in 1992 with a double major in cultural anthropology and Latin American studies. She is married to Taylor Ruthmeyer and has 3 grown children, Regan, Abrianne, and Reese. Ruth, the stage is all yours. We cannot hear you, Ruth.
Okay, I was so busy getting my slides ready, I forgot to unmute myself. Good evening, everybody. It's morning here in Houston. The sun is starting to come up in my office window, and I am so thankful to be with you today. It's an American holiday here in the United States. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and it's a day that we celebrate the progress that this great man made. He was an incredible leader who inspired millions and millions of people to fight for equal rights for Black citizens in this country. And we're just really thankful for his legacy, and his work continues here. So I just want to make sure that you are aware of the special holiday here in the US. I'm so inspired by Sanyok's presentation. I cannot believe that in 5 short months, he took this seed of a vision and pulled together a team and executed in such a professional manner a pilot that is so similar to the work that we do here at Rice University. I'm going to share just a little bit of background information about our university, our programs, our philosophy, and our methodology. And hopefully this will just continue to inspire you. Sanyok, your slide where you talked about 10 years, 100 students, 100 coaches, what an incredible goal. And that's something that gets me excited also. My job here at the university lets me work with young leaders. It also allows me to work with professional coaches. And as you know, coaching is such an inspiring profession. I think I learn more from my students than I give to them. I want to share a photo of my team here at Rice University. In the center is our executive director, Tom Kolditz. And then on the other side of me is our senior operations director, Lily Bezzosi. In 2015, these 2 individuals came to Rice University to launch the Doer Institute for New Leaders. This institute was launched with the understanding that the college years are the most critical time for developing leaders, and that we were missing an opportunity during this developmental stage to really build leader identity and equip people with these competencies. Not only are we focused on helping students at Rice University build their leadership potential, but we really want to also improve the practice of leader development in higher education. We've spent the past 5 years surveying universities across the country, and when we ask them, are you developing leaders? Everybody's answer is yes. When we ask them, how are you developing leaders? People stumble, and the responses are all over the place. And what we've realized is that in higher education, there's so much emphasis on classroom education, and sometimes there's a commitment to leadership education, but not as much commitment and resources allocated for leader development. And that's where the professional coaches come in. As you heard in the previous presentation, we talk about working at the base of this pyramid. Instead of using coaches only for the elite leaders at the top of an organization, we believe that we need to make an early investment at the base of the pyramid. That's where the young students are. That's where the emerging leaders are. And we know that when you make that early investment, you're going to see greater returns. I have a son who plays the violin in his high school orchestra. And after one of his recent concerts, the parents gathered around at a reception for coffee and cookies. And people came up to me and said, "Your son is so musically talented. He's an incredible violinist. You must be so proud." And what my husband and I recognized in that moment was they don't understand that he is not more musically talented than the other children. It's just that he started his violin lessons earlier in life. A lot of the children in the orchestra didn't pick up their first violin until they were 15 years old. My son was holding a violin when he was 4 years old, and he had all those years of practice and experience that allowed him to develop over time. So that's the power of early intervention. So we all know that many people in higher education aspire to develop leaders, but how do we do that? And our work at Rice University over the last 5 years has allowed us to do a lot of research and compare students who go through the Door Institute coaching program versus the students who do not have that intervention. What we have found is that for graduate students who are in school, even over the course of 5 years, their university experience alone does not impact their leader identity at all. You see a very flat line over these 5 years, and this includes business school students. For undergraduate students, we see a very similar trajectory. Or actually, you could say there's actually no trajectory here. It's just a flat line. During 4 years of university, students' leader identities remain virtually unchanged. That means they're graduating from college no more capable of leading than they were when they were in their senior year of high school. And this is unacceptable. We need to do something about this in higher ed. So here you see a group of students from our university that are part of our affiliate program. What can coaches do? What do leadership coaches do? Well, here at Rice University, we ask them to help students identify the core competencies that each student needs to be an effective leader, and we help students create a customized plan for their own development, helping them understand their strengths, their weaknesses, their developmental areas. We also help them cultivate their self-awareness, confidence, and this impacts their leader identity. Here's our team of coaches. We have coached over 2,000 students to date, and it takes a team of coaches to make this happen. So here you see about 40 of our professional ICF coaches at Rice University. All of these coaches are contracted through the Institute, and every semester they coach anywhere from 10 to 15 students each. We're very eager to share our methods and our stories because we know that what we have accomplished at Rice University has been effectively measured for impact. And as other universities have been reaching out to us and asking us for consultations, for resources, for assistance, we realized that the best way to disseminate this information and share our experience was through a book. So we are about to launch our first book from the Door Institute. It's called Leadership Reckoning: Can Higher Education Develop the Leaders That We Need? And here you see an endorsement for our book from Klaus Schwab, who is on our board of directors. Here are the 4 principles that guide our work at Rice University. We believe that leader development needs to be a central pillar in higher education, and that every single student should have access to these resources in order to develop their capabilities. We insist on using only evidence-based techniques. We only use professionally trained people. And for us at Rice University, that means using ICF credentialed coaches. Most of the coaches that we train are coaches that have been working in the Houston business community or even across the country. Because of our virtual world, we're now able to hire coaches from California, from New York, from LA, because we know that virtual coaching is just as effective as face-to-face coaching. If there's one thing that we've learned in this pandemic is that some of our assumptions around the effectiveness of face-to-face coaching were challenged. And we do have evidence that the virtual coaching was just as impactful for students as the face-to-face. Another one of our first principles is objective measurement of outcomes. By this, we mean every single coaching session and every student and every coach is being rigorously evaluated from beginning to end. We want to know, is our work really moving the needle? For us, it's not enough to know that students are happy and that they're satisfied with the program. We need to know that there's an actual measurable change in their lives. And so to that end, we have a team of social psychologists that are measuring the impact of our interventions here at Rice. So what are some of those measurable impacts that we mentioned? First, every student is administered a pre-test before they meet their coach, and then a post-test after their last coaching session. We are seeing statistically significant changes in students when it comes to their leader identity, their well-being, their sense of purpose, and self-concept clarity. We've also been able to compare the students who have been coached to the students that were not coached. We've done waitlist studies. We have access to a lot of data from a senior exit survey. So this senior exit survey is administered to every student at Rice, regardless of whether or not they work with the Door Institute. What we know is that the students who work with us are more likely to pursue leadership positions after their coaching experience. They're also more likely to be offered employment at graduation. We looked at the senior graduation data and we saw that the students who had worked with Door already had job offers at the point of graduation. Additionally, this is just a secondary benefit. We did not set out to influence their starting salary, but we found that the students who worked with us, on average, were making $10,000 more in their first jobs out of school. And additionally, we also saw that the students who worked with the Door Institute showed higher levels of commitment to the university after graduation. This is what we call our loyalty factor. Now I'd like to just share a few of the stories from the students that have worked with us here at the business school at Rice. So our program is not limited to the business school students. We have 7,000 students at our university, and every single student, regardless of major or field of study, can work with a leadership coach. But here you're going to see some stories from students who are in the business school. I want to also mention that because of the success of our program with the business school students, we have recently come to an agreement that not only are we going to provide professional coaching to these students, but we're also going to offer them ICF coach training, ICF accredited coach training, beginning this semester. So we have a pilot program starting with 21 students in 2 weeks. And these are MBA students who, in addition to their course load for their business degree, they're also going to take on 60 hours of International Coach Federation training so that they can also develop these coaching skills. So I hope you'll enjoy this video.
This had always been I'm in a position where I help manage a few other managers within our organization, and this had always been traditionally a big challenge for me, is giving effective feedback, especially when maybe there are opportunities to improve. And so I took that framework that was talked about in that class, and literally that week was able to go and visit with several of the people that I manage. And quite frankly, I was blown away by the fact that people you received it very differently when it was coming from a place where I was on their side.
For people who don't want to stay in a technical role their entire life, who want to step into a more managerial function and eventually lead an organization, they can especially benefit as they try to step into that managerial space from having the one-on-one attention of, okay, what are your strengths and weaknesses as a communicator, as a leader, and just getting a better understanding of those before they take that next step, I think is really important.
This program is significant in that it's one-on-one sessions and it's client-led. So I get to map out the course that I want to take and what I want to work on through each one of these sessions.
I know a lot of things about myself now, and whenever I'm taking a decision or behaving in some way, I know how to think and take a 10,000 feet view and be a better person and a leader.
As I'm getting all this knowledge in the MBA classroom that I didn't have before, and as I'm seeing things at my company that, oh my gosh, I had no idea that this is how it's supposed to be done. We could be doing this better. Learning how to influence without that formal authority has been really, really helpful.
How do I empower people effectively just by the way that I live my life? And one of the things I recognized was active listening and developing empathy. And these were all things that did not necessarily come naturally.
One thing that's really exciting when you sit in these Catalyst modules time after time is that you hear students come back during the second session saying, oh my gosh, I just took the skill from the last session and applied it with my colleagues, and I cannot believe how well it worked.
To close, I just want to share some really kind, generous words from Magda Mook, who's the CEO and Executive Director of the International Coaching Federation. She had an advanced copy of our book, and this is her endorsement of our book and of the Institute's programs where we use leadership coaches. So as Sanyok said earlier, young people are the future, and this early investment in them is so critical. We know that the future belongs to them, and we're really honored and privileged to be able to partner with you to create more and stronger leaders in India. Thank you.
Thank you for that assurance, Ruth. It feels really good. And also, what a coincidence, because on the day you celebrate Dr. King, who had a very powerful dream. I remember the former President Obama's swearing in also happened the next day after Dr. King's birthday, and it did come true with his swearing in. We here are celebrating on this day here. Seems somewhere the universe has conspired to approve of our dreams too. Touch wood quickly. And as we now move on to the man who, the moment we shared this idea, immediately without batting an eyelid said, yes, we are ready. Professor Prasad Lingana, a faculty at Ramaya Institute of Management Studies, who comes with more than 3 decades of experience in sales and marketing, general management and consulting. He is the HOD of the finishing school. So we now request you to share what your experience has been.
Thank you, Rashmi, and very good evening to everybody. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude, my personal gratitude, as well as the gratitude of the Institute to the ICF Bengaluru Chapter for offering us this pilot project, and I'm really happy that it happened. I want to speak a little bit. I'm sorry I don't have a PowerPoint presentation deck, because the last 1 week was quite hectic for all of us at the Institute after Dr. Radha's demise. So I'm not able to put a presentation deck together. So please excuse me for that. I want to speak a little bit about the finishing school that Rashmi mentioned. And our institute was one of the first B schools in Bangalore, at least, to have a full-fledged finishing school. It was the vision of a director to establish this, and the mission of the finishing school is to simply create employable managers. Because we find that employability is a major setback. Employability skills are a major setback for business graduates to find meaningful employment. So a director said, let's do this and make our students employable. And how do we do that? By imparting skills which are contemporary in nature. Sanyok mentioned things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, all of that. Analytics is another area which is coming up very strongly. So we make sure to train our students in contemporary skills that are required by the industry so that at the end of 2 years, they become employable and are productive from day one. And I was going through I was listening to Sanjog when he was making the presentation, and he talked about the vision and mission of the program. And one of the things was, I noticed that ethics was there in his statements as well. And coincidentally, it happens to be on our mission statement as well as the finishing school. We want to build ethical managers. Very important. And in today's world, a highly competitive world, where people are ready to cut corners to achieve their ends, ethics sometimes take a back seat. So we really wanted to ensure that the managers that we are grooming are ethical in nature. So when Rashmi and Sanyog proposed this pilot program, I conferred with Dr. Radha, who was the then dean, and we didn't hesitate even for a moment, because we saw a lot of synergy between what we were trying to achieve at the finishing school and what you guys were proposing. At the academic level, our faculty do take a lot of additional efforts to groom students in the 2 years that they're there in the institute. So we take personal interest in the students. We also have a very formal mentorship program where a set of students is assigned to every faculty for 2 years. But it's nothing professional, because we are not trained mentors or we're not trained coaches. So from whatever experience we have, like me, I come with 24 years of industry experience, and the last 8 years I've been teaching at Ramaya. So I come with 32 years of experience. So people like me, there are a couple of them also in the institute. We make sure that we're able to transfer all our knowledge and skills to the students and hope that it makes a difference to their lives. But we didn't have a formal program as such. So when this opportunity came along, we were really excited, and I'm very happy for the students who completed the course. I would have been very happy if all the 50 who enrolled into the course completed the course, but we'll make sure that the next time around, all of those who enrolled go on to complete the course. Since this is a pilot, I think there are learnings for all of us, for both ICF as well as for us. And we will learn from these learnings and ensure that the next time around it becomes even greater success. And one thing I must share with all of you is, I've been an educator for the last 8 years, and what I see is that everybody has potential. Sanyog spoke about self-awareness earlier on in his presentation, and that is something which we find lacking in our students, and even at the graduate level when they come in to do an MBA. Most of them are not aware of their strengths and weaknesses. So some of the smarter ones are able to latch on to opportunities that we provide in the institute to develop leadership skills. We teach leadership as a subject, but we also give them an opportunity to hone their leadership skills by making them do things in the institute. For example, last year in 2020, we had something like 24 events that happened in the institute, at an average of 2 events per month. And all these events were executed by a team of student volunteers. So we give them an opportunity to practice the leadership skills that they learned in theory in a real world situation, whether it is organizing a management seminar or inviting somebody for a guest lecture or conducting club activities. We have HR club, marketing club, finance club, and operations club. So on and so forth. So like this, we provide ample opportunities for students to hone their leadership skills. But having said all this, there is no replacement for a professional coaching session to build a leadership pipeline. And I'm quite excited with Sanjog's or the ICF Bengaluru Chapter's, a vision of building 100 leaders in a very short time frame. And I really hope that we will be able to contribute to ICF Bengaluru Chapter to meet those goals. So that is what I wanted to share with all of you. And I really wish that we will have more such programs in the future, and ICF Bangalore Chapter can count on us at RIMS to offer you all the support that you want in building this leadership pipeline. So with this, I want to end my talk, and thank you once again for the opportunity given.
Thank you for those words of assurance, Professor Prasad. We'll definitely keep them in mind. The next two guests, very naturally and logically, we need to segue now from academics to the place of work. So our next two speakers come from those spaces. Mr. Sharad Haida, who's been with Microland since its formative years and held many leadership roles, including that of COO, CFO, CEO, and many more. An IT industry veteran with over 35 years of experience. In his current role as Chief of Staff at Microland, he provides oversight and guidance, and he is passionate about the field of education and serves on the board of ISDM. He's also a follower in the field of professional coaching, and he's been an inspiration for us to move this initiative forward. Request you now, Sharad, to share your perspectives of what exactly should be done for the job market and how can coaching come in as an intervention.
Thanks, Rashmi, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Let me just sort of, before we come to the point of what can be done, should be done, just talk a little bit about from the perspective of the corporate world. The way we see happening, we see a world where the half-life of knowledge is going down year by year. And let me just explain that a little bit. The knowledge that you come to the table with, any knowledge, from wherever we are taking freshers or even experienced leaders, today on an average in 2 years to 3 years is half as relevant as it used to be. And by the end of, therefore, let's say 8 to 10 years, it's only 10% of that which really is relevant for the world going forward. We just keep taking the half-life and the nuclear formula here and that. Imagine the half-life itself coming down from 3 years to maybe 1.5 years. And therefore, in 4.5 years, you're going to have set of knowledge which is just not relevant anymore. People like me, when on one hand, one can say I have 35 years of deep experience. The truth is my technology domain knowledge is so obsolete, and the amount of unlearning I have to do is extremely high. And therefore, learning to learn is something we see from a corporate world as something so important to be able to do it. I'm just going to move on from that half-life. If you see what's happening in the corporate world of your domain knowledge, whether it is technology, management, marketing, finance, the truth is this concept of half-life is operating everywhere in the world. Relationships last half as much as they used to last earlier. People stay in the jobs half as much. So this entire thing of transience is something which is part of life and only increasing. What we call as the VUCA world, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and all of that fundamentally translates to this half-life model, as I would call it. Now, what do you do when the world around you is in this change where I've just learned to understand how to deal with the current situation and the situation has changed? Because the half-life, everything around that is changing. Your boss is changing, the way your peers think is changing, the way your customers expect from you is changing in. And therefore, in this situation, unless you know how to deal with yourself, your immediate ecosystem, and maybe a little more of a larger ecosystem, there is no way you can be effective. Being able to deal with yourself, to come to the terms of understanding the world around, coming to the terms to know that my knowledge itself is inadequate and I need to do something. Coming to know that unless I sort of spend enough time in understanding my peers well and myself well, I will not be able to do what I need to do, is going to become extremely important for someone to deliver in the corporate world. I remember a couple of years back, last year actually, to be precise, we had a batch of 16 very bright graduates from IITs and NITs, and they go through a 3 month of real high pressure, high powered training to become top level technology architects. Midway during the course, maybe after a month and a half, we realized that 10 out of 16 were sort of lagging behind significantly. These are all techies. I'm not talking about MBA grads now. Now, what you end up finding here, when we went into more detail talking to them, stressed, unsure of themselves, not knowing whether this is the world that I want to be in. While I did extremely well in my graduation, I'm not sure whether this is something I'm going to enjoy myself in. Questioning all of those sort of things. And what we ended up doing is to first address that confusion in the mind, to sort of help them figure out what they want to do. We were lucky that we had a very high powered coach focused on this high IQ intelligence folks who had a serious challenge with the EQ. And as a result, we ended up figuring out some answers around that. Now, the question that we have been asking, and we've certainly not done much around it as yet, is therefore what happened with this, and what we do in technology industry, we hire by thousands. It's not that you're hiring 10 and 15 and 20, because that's how the demand is. And therefore you get individuals who understand the technology domain, who understand the subject, but they don't understand themselves. To that extent, from a corporate world perspective, if there is something that can be done, maybe if we train students for 3 years, the campus to corporate program that we have 3 months and 4 months campus to corporate program, if we can take 10% of that time and help the new leaders coming into the organization understand themselves well, we believe that these skills, if I can call it, so there's always this performance delivery skill, the technology, the domain, the subject, that's like a performance delivery skill. We think there is a performance multiplier effect. And this entire thing about knowing yourself, what I want to do, building confidence, having that thing is a performance multiplier. And today, unless we add that performance multiplier, we're not going to be able to get a lot from the kids. Actually, the challenge is we ourselves as organizations are going through this half-life. Majority of Fortune 500s which are there 10, 20, 30 years back don't exist. Organizations perish at a crazy rate. And part of it is because the leaders themselves are struggling to find answers to some of these challenges themselves, senior leaders, and we're trying to figure that out only at a later date. So only if we could think of some of these things at an early level, get people, get students, get our new generation of leaders to be able to be on much surer ground, more confident, being able to deal with themselves, handle stress, I think it would be a lot more effective. So for me, the perspective is about, just as there is a supply side, which Professor Prasad is working on, I think there's a demand side, which we can work on. Maybe some of us as institutes, as sort of corporates can think of, maybe we can get part of our campus to corporate programs. We think we'll benefit a lot. We need to sort of put it more into it because we so much focus on engine building about technology competencies, but you don't really focus on this so much. But certainly we have realized, we have taken some initiatives, and I think we'll only move forward on that. So I see this as a great initiative, which is working on the supply side. Wait for some time, the demand side going to ask for it more and more, which then only will get more Dr. Prasads and everyone to start focusing on that a lot more, because that's what the industry will expect it to be. Thank you so much.
Assuring, reassuring words, Sharad. Thank you so much. Seems like we are in the right direction and a beautiful bridge for this dream. And our next speaker, also from the space of work, Dr. A. Joseph George, founder of Workplace Catalyst. With a stellar reputation in the fields of professional career development, training and development, and organizational processes, his firm works on individual, group, and organization level application of behavioral sciences. His book, Being People, Life Histories, whoever has unmuted, kindly mute, is a very well-received one, and he also edits the NHRDN journal in HRM and OD areas. Joseph, your views, especially now that the current crop of graduates will be moving into a situation we term new normal.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Rashmi. Welcome to Reconnect on this forum. Am I audible? I'm just checking because I've not been testing my signal. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Again, like the previous speakers, pardon me for not having a presentation to guide us through. But I'd like to begin by taking just two words out of Ruth's presentation to situate our context differently. And my attempt here is actually to bridge both what Mr. Sharad Heda was speaking to, as well as what the other speakers are speaking to. And the two words are social psychology. And I'm bringing this with very special emphasis. Earlier in December, some of us may have had the opportunity to catch a written feature on Dr. Kamala Chowdhury. And I'm making special mention here to say that she was what I would consider the invisible hand in the institutionalization of the first management education institute of India, that is the IIM Ahmedabad. So some of us might like to take a look at her history because she was obviously one on the minority side. And when I'm saying minority, it was gender minority. What is a specialization? Social psychology. And I raised a question in another forum on organization development. Is it because she was the real, let's say, motive force in the institute, in the institutionalization process there, that social psychology as a subject is not taught in formal HR courses today, or for that matter, in many a management stream today? And this, I would consider as a very important question for people present on today's panel here today, because we have people from the education industry also on this panel. The reason I bring this up is also because look at the way the formalization of a practice in coaching has been documented by the West. You see evidence of that in Ruth's presentation, and whether it is sheer measurement in pre and post kind of scenarios, it is also to do with concepts in coaching. Look at the identity of the student. They look at what makes for leadership identity and several such markers that we don't quite formally pursue when we peg our processes for development. With that said, I was just kind of jotting points this morning as to if you're looking at coaching in the Indian context, then what is it that really comes to mind? And I said, well, this initiative which ICF has done in Bangalore is a welcome start, because many a student goes unheard even within the corridors and walls of their own institute, especially to do with their emotional and social needs. But otherwise, there is the other side, which is neglected too, which is faculty themselves. And in that sense, therefore, the couple of points that I will make mention of. Many a faculty today are a product of their, let's say, professional education, intellectual mooring, and they take many knocks in their life to actually serve a cause that they think they are really wedded to. So there is a codification, there is a kind of a diffusion of a certain kind of knowledge that they bring to the classroom, but they may not have a uniform, let's say, wherewithal to deal with the socio-emotional worlds of our students. And that's what I was really paying attention to when Sanyog was making presentation. The words of the students on the video, as well as on the feedback that they got in their kind of what he would call survey research, had to do with what in learning domain is affective complexity, which is to do with, words of confidence, reassurance, and all of that. And that's what coaching as a process really plugs into today. But otherwise, if you look at the regular life of faculty today, they are dealing with a lot of, let's say, cognitive domain, and not therefore paying as much attention to the affective domain. And in that sense, therefore, the complement that coaching can bring to the student world is therefore very, very timely. But going, as it were, into, I saw that number 100 by 100 into the future with merely the kind of availability of external coaches is not something that educational institutions can bank on a regular basis. So on the supply side, as it were, within the institution, I think educational leaders, educational administration has a lot to do in terms of integrating the coaching identity within the teacher identity. Well, as far as students are concerned, I was not very sure if the current initiative would really spread itself beyond management education per se. And I find that whether it was the Christ University or the Ramaya University, the primary pilots, as it were for management students. So I would think a lot of life skills are required across the spectrum, whether it is in the pure sciences, the natural sciences, or even humanities, students of arts, political science, and so on and so forth. I think there's a lot that Indian homes and families are not able to complement with, thanks to what's already been alluded to as information explosion, half-life of knowledge, and so on and so forth. You see, there is an attitudinal predisposition that students bring to their lives, both in the formal education that they have at college, or for that matter, in their peer interaction. And they maintain what I would say is a conceptual armor to say that they have learned. But what really triggers change in them is the force of the environment. So, for example, yesterday I was sharing something with about 28 of my students of organization development, where students' aspirations are not really tuned into when some of our recruiters go to campus. When I say our, I mean people from these corporate companies when they go to campus. So one such experience I'll just count for you to explain this. And with a few more sentences, I'll kind of stop here to see if I'm making any sense at all. So this experience is that a recruiter goes into a technology campus, hoping to recruit some of the bright minds from tier 1 campuses into their corporations. And some of those tier 1 corporations are represented here on this forum. And the students begin to say that, look, we don't want to join, quote unquote, what they've coded informally as bus companies. So this person was really dumbfounded. So what is this bus company? So the bus company is, it's not the bus that sits as a chip on your computer, but it's the bus ferries to the employee from home to the office and back. So what was this all about? What is this bus about? No, you see, we don't want to join a company that fetches us at a particular time that is normed by the company and then asks us to leave at that very kind of norm in the evening hours. We'd like to join a company where we have a freedom to come and log in when we want to and leave when we want to, as long as we're held accountable to our performance. So there is this crying need to understand the social psychology of the emerging students. And that's where I'd really like to end my little pitch with. With that said, let me thank MG, or MGR, as he introduced himself to me a few months ago, and all of the others who've made this event possible behind the scenes. A lot of names that may be there but are going unheard right now. I hope I have given something that is useful for all of us to reflect on. with that, I close my little set of thoughts on this evening.
Beautifully articulated, Dr. Joseph. Thank you so much. And being a pioneer coach who's worked with Wipro, your words mean a lot, especially as far as attitudes are concerned. And before we move on to get ideas from our panelists on how to future-proof our coaching program, we now have two of our fellow coaches who'd be showcasing what the coaching community who are part of this program have to share about themselves. Bikramjeet Maitra, a corporate generalist, and somebody who's an amazing speaker with a philosophy that anyone can significantly improve with sustained, thoughtful action, will be our first coach with us. And along with him is Payal Khanna, an academic with close to almost a decade's experience and an MPhil in humanities, holding a PG diploma in DNCC, a Carl Jung Concept Certified Coach. And she's somebody who interacts extensively as an academia with the student community, and therefore have together put the inputs of all the coaches who've been part of this program. So Payal, if you can go ahead, Bikram and you can showcase what the coaches have shared.
Thank you, Rashmi. Payal and me will take on the survey we did with the coaches who volunteered for this program, and sort of complete the circle which was started by Sanyog by sharing the most important stakeholder, the client's perspective of this. Quickly, some numbers we might have forgotten, or some background, that all the coaches were volunteered, and they decided that how many they will coach. But some of the coaches invested more time, and if I have to mention anybody, I have to mention Sanyog, who spent a lot of time and with many of us trying to ideate that how this process can be run. And of course, Sanyog was always there to nudge all of us, all the stakeholders in the right direction. And that perhaps made to see us a certain amount of success. This particular survey was record the experience, because we thought that the coaches can also bring in a lot of learning from their direct experience of coaching the young minds. And as rightly pointed out earlier, that most of us aspire to coach people who are somewhere in the higher echelon of a corporate, and that's why we don't do with such young minds for our coaching. So that's the learning we want to record. And when Sanyog said, he said that the survey was anonymous. Contrary to that, we have allowed the coaches to give their name, because we thought coaches are so good in creating safe environment, they will not feel unsafe to identify what they're saying. So that's the background with which we did this. Can you go to the next slide, Payal? Great. There were 6 questions. One of the additional question was actually the name and the email ID of the coaches, which were not there for the students. And of the 19 participant coaches, 18 represented. 18 actually completed the survey, which represent 95%. If you look at any survey, the amount of people participating in the survey is a very good measure. That means they were quite involved in the whole process. And there was a question, which was a very umbrella kind of a question, which says that given an opportunity, whether they are going to be involved in an initiative like this in future. And 14 out of 18, 78% said they are definitely going to be involved themselves. So which shows that most of the people, this was very, very successful experience. 3 others said probably, and 1 said possibly. Now, I went to the Google. All of us do that pretty often. and found out what is the difference between probably and possibly. So Google says probably means most likely, and possibly means it's quite iffy. It may be, it may not be. So, most of the people are quite interested in repeating their experience. The other four questions where the real meat is there will be taken on by Payal, who is the main architect of these slides. And but before I pass it on to her, we gave a lot of importance to confidentiality. So even if we know that who said what, in this presentation, we are only going to give aggregate results. And, even if where there is a descriptive sentences put in, we are not going to quote that directly because of, first of all, want of time. We were given 5 minutes. We wanted to give a representative view. So with this, I would like to hand over to Payal, who has also created this open book, and she's going to read the next few chapters and verses of that book. Payal.
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you so much for setting the context, and very good evening to all. A good morning to Ruth. Thank you for inspiring this program. And warm thank you to Sanyo for making this vision a reality in such a short period of time. I think we are here because of his efforts and also because of the efforts of all the fellow coaches and everybody who is there behind the scenes at the ICF Bengaluru Chapter. So to begin with, the primary purpose of conducting the survey is very important to understand. It was to assess the meaningful thoughts, opinions, and feelings in a non-intimidating environment, and also to learn about what motivates the coachees and what is important to them. And the objective has been to dig deeper into the survey to be able to gather significant information within a broader perspective. So the results provide a snapshot of the challenges, goals, and wins of the target survey population. And this valuable feedback can surely become the baseline to measure and establish a benchmark from which to compare results over time. So looking at this question, we wanted to discover what the coaches aspire for, what they'd like to do, and what they do best. And what we saw, which was not surprising at all, was that large focus was on career development. At the same time, fear of corporate life was also high, coupled with a lot of inhibitions and worries around building relationships with people. Then we did observe the concern around translating strengths into confidence. That really was on the top of, the setting the goals. And there was also this very dire need for financial independence. One very interesting response was also about how do I know if I'm ready for the world, which featured as well, along with the need for clarity around taking decisions. So we see that, the youth at this time is beset or mired with common challenges across. Moving on, the other goals that featured were, or we could say that the areas of development that were sought by the coachees were how to become confident. This is something which also reflected in Ruth's presentation, that this was a major change that was seen, self-awareness and confidence, and addressing limitations and being successful. So how you transcend your own limitations and move towards progression, overcoming procrastination and also finding focus. Very interestingly, building resilience, and also not surprising at all again, persevering in these uncertain COVID times, at the same time being happy and also being able to, importantly, respond to the parent expectations featured as the topmost goals. Moving further, with this question, the prime intent was to measure the progress that the coaching intervention had enabled. And this is very, very important for us as a survey result and it has been very heartening and gladdening to note that the clarity of thought and self-confidence, understanding oneself, seeing opportunities, coming to the fore, really took the front seat in terms of the progression that happened. Enhanced self-reflection and progression from limiting behaviors to enabling ones tell us a lot about what coaching can do here when, coaching young minds. The aim here in this particular question was to understand what constitutes the primary difference, in coaching a young mind as opposed to an adult, from the eyes of a coach. And the responses speak for themselves. You can see them on the slide. The coaches found youth to be more open to learning and ready to experiment, and also keen to absorb more. The needs and goals were definitely of immediate nature. The experience outlined, you can see by the coaches here, is that it was genuinely refreshing, authentic, different in a certain sense, joyful and empowering. Will some coaches also said that, the experience was same regardless of the age group. Coming to the last slide, this question was to largely record the overall experience by the coaches of coaching young students. And we can see very stark, it comes out on the slide, that they found the experience to be energizing, humbling, inspiring, learning, and exciting, along with being a very satisfying experience all in all. So this has been the story from the side, the other side, that is from the coaches' side, as to how this all the entire journey went about. So I close the presentation with this and pass on to Rashmi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Payal and Bikram. And when we have so much and so little time, we suddenly look at the clock and we know we have just 8 minutes in the promised time to complete. So before we let you go, first to Ruth, and then to Sharad, and then to Dr. Joseph, any idea on how we can future-proof this program such that, Ruth, especially since you've been here in this space for such a long, long time in comparison, what is it that we should be really mindful about, can really help us taking this forward? And especially on a holiday that you've woken up so early to be part of this speaks a lot about how committed you are to this. So Ruth, your concluding words.
I just want to say I'm so inspired by the vision and the execution of that vision. Just in the last few months in India, I had one person who joined the call who's actually one of our students at Rice University in the business school program, and he has taken advantage of all the coaching opportunities and the training opportunities. And Sujeev said, "This is so amazing that we are taking the Door Institute vision across the ocean to India." I want to tell you that so many of the questions that I see in the chat box, the answers to those questions are going to be in the book, which is going to be released tomorrow. It's called Leadership Reckoning. It's going to talk to you about our methodology, our philosophy, all of our measurement principles, and we have loaded it up with appendices that have all the resources you need. So we're even sharing things like the leader development plan that we give to our students, the emotional intelligence assessment that we use. We talk about cognitive, affective, and behavioral changes in our students. So I know that there's not enough time to answer all of the individual questions, but the book is relatively brief, and there's a chapter dedicated to all of those things that I just mentioned.
Okay, is it me? Dr. Ruth,
No.
are you there?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I was going to say, in order to future-proof, I think one of the most important things is getting buy-in from your stakeholders, from at the top as well as at the student level. So at Rice University, the president of the university, the provost of the university, the deans of the various schools are all aware of our program. But we have, most important is the support from the provost and the president, that institutional level support. And then the other most important stakeholders are the students themselves. And we go directly to students. That means that we don't allow professors to mandate participation in our program. We tell the students, this may not be for you. If you're not ready to develop yourself as a leader, dedicate yourself to your studies and other things. We really tell our coaches, we only want to work with the most motivated students that are ready to be coached. And that readiness and that, opting in, that self-efficacy is very important to us. So we caution other schools, don't make this mandatory. Don't require it as part of your curriculum. Make it something that the students have to opt into. But we do provide it completely free of charge. It's considered part of their core education at Rice University.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Sharad or Dr. Joseph, your remarks, and I'll take a question here because I know we can't justify all the questions on the chat box. To all those who took the effort of typing in, we'll definitely make sure you get your answers from our panelists. Either one of you can take this question, which is, isn't being an effective team member a more basic requirement than being a leader? How can one become a leader if not an effective team member? So any inputs on this, Sharad or Dr. Joseph, either of you can take this.
Yeah, so let me just take it. You know, a leader is also a team member. In fact, if you look at it, managing self, managing team, and managing the ecosystem around are three parts of what you end up going through once you have sort of gone through the coaching, because fundamentally once with coaching you start looking at empathy. The moment you talk empathy, you're talking about understanding others. The moment you talk that, you're talking about building team leaderships and team and working together. So in my mind, it's like it's sort of is a natural growth which ends up happening for the individual, and it's not that it's A or B. I think the world, the way the development happens, it's A and B.
Okay, Dr. Joseph, your take.
Yeah, I just went off screen for a bit to fetch something, but before I go there, many of us would have learned of a book title by name The Road Less Traveled. Yeah. And in that sense, maybe the question was to do with, so does everyone have to be a leader? Is that the road less traveled? Or is the road less traveled by coaching on the team front? But if you remember the author's name, it was Martin Scott Peck. Here's a lesser known book by him. It's called The Diff Drum. It captures what it means to be a team of great leaders. That means all are great leaders. It captures both the individual and the team piece. So I thought I'll just bring this to you because I had opportunity to make mention of this to one of my coachees just yesterday. But with that, I hope I have answered your question, Rashmi.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. And yes, that's all we have time for. And like Mahatma Gandhi said, the future depends on what we do today. All these encouraging words, all from our panelists and our coaches alike, have told us that we are moving in the right direction. Lenny, our Vice President of the chapter, you have exactly 1 minute to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Rashmi. What a fantastic and inspiring session. And so well, we have made an agreement or sort of come together three sectors of our world: the academia, the corporates, and coaching community, right? There is a need, we hear Sharad say, there is a need in the corporation where half-life has to be crossed. We hear Ruth and Joseph share with us the need for early intervention. And we have a coaching community with people like Sayok, who has a dream and a vision. I think what more do we need? We are all geared to achieve our dreams and our aspirations. Thank you all individually for being here. And Sayok, kudos to you for ensuring that ICF is relevant in today's world, with academia, with the corporates, and with the coaching community. Thank you all for being here. And thank you, members, the Bangalore chapter members. I hope you're inspired to be coaches for early interventions for even the academia and the students, and even perhaps the faculty, as we hear some of our speakers say a few words about that. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank
you. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for maintaining time, and for all the members who've come from other chapters as well, and all those inspiring messages. Thank you to our panelists. A heartfelt point of gratitude to say thank you for adding so much value this evening. And we as coaches, I'm sure from the chapter, are now moving with double the motivation to make sure we are going to be meaningful bridges. Have a beautiful week ahead, meaningful year ahead. And thank you once again on behalf of ICF Bengaluru.